And, then again, that's where you also want to look at where's your tax expense on the regular money. Are you paying too much money in taxes on the regular dollars? And, how can we move that to something more tax efficient, like maybe life insurance or maybe, tax-free things. So, there's a lot of options out there, but people just don't even think about it. Welcome to Wealth Creator Radio, where we help people overcome the uncertainty of having enough retirement income. I'm your host, Eric Heckman, a certified financial planner with over 30 years of experience. We want you to enjoy life and not have to wonder where your money will come from and how long it'll last. My mission is to show you how to develop a personalized income plan so you can retire more and have worry less wealth. Here at Wealth Creator Radio, we cut through the noise and get straight to what matters. We understand that the world of retirement planning can be filled with confusing products, ever-changing tax laws, and volatile markets. That's why we're here to help successful people like you navigate the uncertainty and create a blueprint for a thriving, work-optional life.
Donald Trump ran for president on the promise of extending the 2017 tax cuts, but he might have a hard time keeping that promise. So today, Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial, is going to share with us what we need to know about the current tax policy and how you can act now to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. As always, here is the phone number we want you to have handy. If you have questions, you may call or text the word VISIT to get on Eric's calendar, 800-454-1184. It's a complimentary appointment. Remember, Eric is a certified financial planner. It's his goal to help people have remarkable retirements. In fact, he's been doing this for over 30 years now. So he and his team work with retirees just like you. They can answer your questions. Also, listen up for a chance to get the digital toolbox. It's digital, and it includes the book that Eric has written and other great information for retirement. Remember, this show comes out as a podcast every Tuesday morning. So wherever you get your podcasts, just search for Wealth Creator Radio. Eric, so happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, it's tax time for 2024, but that's the past. What we're trying to talk about here is the future here. So, yep, definitely kind of a weird time to be talking about tax 24 and then also your taxes for 2025 at the same time. But that's what we're going to try to do.
And for years, you and I have been talking about the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring now at the end of this year. I can't believe it, Eric. It's going to be the end of 2025. President Trump has said he wants to extend those tax cuts for all of us, but it's not a sure thing. We have to see what happens, right?
Yeah, well, it's not the extension is probably the debate. It's more, can you make it permanent? So back in the 90s when political parties actually used to work together and run the government versus trying to stop the government. Yeah, exactly. Clinton and Gingrich had passed a law that said that you have to be able to pay for your taxes. If you're going to do some tax cut, you have to pay for them. And if you can't pay for them, they can only last 10 years. And that's why Trump's round one could only last for 8 years, because his were so unpaid for and added so much money to the national debt that they only could last 8 years, not even the 10 years like what happened with Bush's and Obama's and such. So, we know that this law is going to expire, but most likely, of course, going to be renewed. But how are they going to do it permanent? They keep saying they want to do it permanent. They've been trying to put some bills out there and other stuff. And, it's just, it doesn't matter what they want to say, I should say, I guess. It's the reality. And so the reality is, if you look at how much the government spends and how much the government makes, I mean, just think of this, your own household. If you're spending, more than 60% more than you make, how are you going to ever pay your bills?
Yeah, exactly.
We all know that's not possible, right? If you make $100,000 a year and you're spending 160, it's just not going to work a long time. And at some point, you're going to be able to run out of the ability to borrow money. And, and that's what's happening with the government. So, Musk is going to supposedly save all this money. Well, that the problem with that math is nobody's looked at the math. So
right. Congress has to look at it. Yeah.
If you look at the cost of the national debt, the cost of the Social Security and Medicare, just those alone are more than the entire amount of money that the government makes. not even the cost of the government is included in that. So
Wow.
you could shut down the entire government, pay nothing for government, and you'd still be losing money. And that's how far off we are. So, in the sense of that, of how can they make them permanent, it's just going to be, spending your kids' inheritance and spending another generation's money. So at some point, you actually have to pay your bills. And so that's going to be the tougher part is, will this be a 5-year extension? Will this be permanent? And what parts will be permanent? Because there's no way it can actually be permanent, because at some point, even if it was voted into law, they're going to run out of money.
Exactly.
Because we're already out of money.
Exactly. We're definitely in debt. So I bet you people are coming to you totally confused about what they should be doing, right? As far as, what's going to be happening with our taxes, and how are you helping them with opportunities that they could be taking advantage of right now regarding their retirement assets?
Well, if you look at the history of taxes, there's only been one other time that the government's been spending as much money compared to the national, how much the country makes, the gross national product, and that was during World War II. And after World War II, the taxes shot up. And guess what? Right now, they're at the lowest they've ever been, and the government's spending the most they've ever spent. So we can tell by, history doesn't always repeat, but it certainly rhymes, as they say.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it rhymes.
We know taxes are going to go up. There's just, no matter what Trump says, maybe a short-term thing, but, the taxes have to go up. It's just, basic economic 101. So how can you prevent that? Well, one of the best things to be doing is moving some money to Roth IRA, doing Roth conversions. We've been doing that for a lot of clients. You want to do it carefully. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking smaller conversions before you jump to the next bracket, but definitely want to be looking at that. And that's something you have to do in that tax year. You can't do that for last year. So this isn't going to help you for 2024. And so that's one thing to be looking at. Also, just looking at tax efficiency. I've got a lot of clients that have a bunch of money sitting in CDs and other bank stuff and paying tax on that, and it's driving up their tax bracket, and they don't even realize how much that money is just sitting around is costing them on taxes. So that money can be moved to something that's tax deferred, permanently get rid of that tax bill every year, and then only pay the taxes if you ever need to use the money. And, lastly, there's also some tax-free stuff. So, again, there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's a super critical time to have people kind of reach out and figure out what they should be doing. So one of the things you can do is if you want to set up a 15 to 30-minute phone call, answer any questions you have with me, Eric Heckman, all you have to do is text the word VISIT to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And you're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Luann Fulmer. So today we're talking about the very real possibility of taxes going up. Okay, let's just pretend that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is not extended. The Tax Foundation says that taxes would increase for 62% of taxpayers. So let's just look at it that way. How would that affect people?
Well, that's maybe countrywide. So, that is not including the state and local tax deduction. Most people in California lost anywhere from $30,000 to $80,000 of write-offs with the Trump tax cuts. So, you got a lower bracket, but you have so much higher income that for a lot of us, it didn't actually save any money. Now, for retirees, I find it did save people a lot of money. So that's where, definitely it might be going up over there. That those things also can, affect your Medicare, affect other things if you're over 65. So, there's a lot of tax strategy you need to be doing. And really the correct tax advice or tax planning should not be to how do I save money for, this taxes. It's like if you're trying to ask for 2024, if you're trying to, well, how do I put some more money in so I can get a write-off? Well, that's going to usually cost you more money down the road. Really, the question you should be asking is, how can I lower my lifetime taxes? That should be the only question you should ever really ask is how do I lower taxes over my lifetime? Now, certain years, if you sold a house or you had a huge capital gain or, things like that. Yeah, okay. That might be the good one to say, how do I lower my tax that year?
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of times, and we've got a lot of clients that have sold stuff or done other things. And you want to do some special tax planning that specific year. But, really the key should be how do I spend less taxes for the rest of my life? And I think a lot of people are asking the wrong question. A lot of people go into their financial advisors and what do they say? go talk to your tax advisor. And then you go talk to the tax person, and what do they say? Go talk to your financial advisor.
Yeah,
So,
right.
I mean, the tax person will tell you how to save money on taxes that past year. That's it. But they're not going to do it over their lifetime. So again, that's where you really need to have some advice. So, if you get some questions, why don't you give us a call, set up a time. All you have to do is text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit 454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Be sure to like and subscribe to Wealth Creator Radio so you can stay up to date on ways to build your wealth and create a retirement you and your family will enjoy for years to come. Like and subscribe today and create your wealth for tomorrow with Wealth Creator Radio.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. He is president of Heckman Financial right here in Silicon Valley. Many people assume that their taxes are going to go down once they stop working, right? Once they're in retirement. While that might be true for some of us, for many of us, taxes could actually become one of our biggest expenses in retirement. So, Eric, here's my question to you. Why do so many people underestimate their tax liability in retirement?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it is just that whole old mantra of, you'll retire in a lower bracket got into people's heads and, kind of stuck.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But it has been accurate for a very long time. And, and so that, that is the tough part. I mean, one of the things that I think when that discussion first came out, or the phrase, or whatever you want to call it, first started was, mainly because of people weren't having as much saved up. But now they've done better. They've saved more in their 401ks and their IRAs. And so they think they're okay. And then things like taxation on Social Security benefits, well, that was never indexed for inflation. So if you're, quote, rich in 1980s money for part of it, and then the other log increased at 1990s, we're talking a long time ago now, right? 30,
Right.
40, I mean, literally the tax
40,
rates,
yeah.
the tax rates for most people on Social Security were set up when they were just starting working.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's how crazy far back those tax rates are.
Good grief.
And so this was their parents' tax brackets, or maybe even grandparents' tax bracket that now they're getting, and that number has not gone up. So more people are paying tax on Social Security than they've saved more in their IRAs and 401ks, and they just don't really realize how huge this tax hit's going to be.
Yeah, that's so true. That's crazy. It seems like that needs to be something done, right? That's something Congress could be working on. Okay, so obviously we need to understand these tax realities, crucial for retirees. Let's talk about how unexpected taxes in retirement can impact their overall financial stability and planning.
Yeah, well, there's three big issues I think people really need to realize. Number one, biggest one is, often you hear people say healthcare is the biggest expense in retirement. That is totally wrong. I don't know why people think that.
Yeah.
The number one expense is taxes, hands down. No, not even a close second is healthcare. And so one thing that you have to think about is, say you've did great, you built up $1 million in your retirement plan. Well, you still have a mortgage, but there's no statement. There's no payment. It comes whenever you take the money out, or it comes when you're 73. So that's the Uncle Sam. He's got a mortgage on your retirement plan, and so that $1 million is closer to 700 probably. And the hard part is you don't see that on the statement. So you see that on your mortgage statement if you owe money on your house, right? You know how much you owe, but you don't know how much you owe on your retirement plan. So that makes it a lot harder to conceptualize and really calculate. And then, the other one would be, if depending on which buckets of money you take out first, if it's taxable, tax deferred, tax deductible, all these different things, depending on which one you take first, can definitely affect how long your money is going to last. So, you have to be super careful about how you take this money out. How do you minimize the taxes over the rest of your lifetime? Because that will extend how much money you have and how long it lasts, irrespective of return. We're just talking about how do you make that money last longer. And, if you can save 10% on taxes, it doesn't make it, 1% more earnings is not nearly as big a deal as saving 10% on taxes. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And then lastly, the other one is the spousal penalty, or widow's penalty, I should say. Sorry. The widow's penalty is when one person passes away, not only do you lose that smaller Social Security check, but you're under the Trump tax laws, your brackets drop in half. And so what that means is that same amount of income or lesser amount of income, because you don't have the Social Security money anymore, but your bracket now is cut in half, which means you're going to be higher up in brackets in terms of how much you owe. So, that is one tax that people unfortunately are unaware of. And I always have to sadly explain it to them. And one of the worst times that you can explain it to them, right after they lost their loved one.
Yes.
And so depending on what time of the year, sometimes we'll have to try to do some special stuff before they get that last year of married, filing jointly. But if like I had somebody who passed away at the end of November, there wasn't much time to do any tax planning at all. So, it depends on that situation. So, it is one of those critical things to know about. Again, it all goes back to having a plan. And so one of the things we've set up is a digital toolbox where a lot of great downloads are there. Things like, am I paying too much money in taxes in retirement? When should I time my Social Security? When should I take it? Will my money last as long as I do? And a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and even a spot to set up a time to talk with me, Eric Heckman. So if you want to go ahead and get all that great data and learn some stuff and then be educated and be able to take care of yourself, all you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And you might be thinking, why Eric Heckman? Because Eric is here to help you retire well. That's his goal for you. This is what he does. He's been doing this for over 30 years. And, he would love to guide you about your retirement. And their system is working very well. Lots of retirees are listening to our show on the radio and heading to visit them in person. Remember, it's a complimentary appointment. So thank you for joining us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. So it is easy to see why so many retirees are caught off guard by their taxes. But is there really anything people can do to reduce their tax burden in retirement, Eric? What are you telling them?
Well, it's really more about having, looking at an income plan. So if you don't have a written income plan for the rest of your life, I don't know how you can do this, to be honest. So that's the only way I know how to do the analysis. And so what we want to look at is a couple things: is what's the lifetime taxation and annual taxation, right? And how do we lower that lifetime amount? And sometimes it may not be as much things that, like, I've got a new client that's, Mary and George, they just started working with us and they're both turning 71, and, in 2 years, they have to be doing their required minimum distributions. So there's not a ton of tax time, tax planning we can do, but we can't do stuff with the other money because they don't need a lot of their other money sitting there. And so if we can make that money more tax efficient, so if you can, get rid of a lot of taxable money from bank accounts and make it either tax deferred or tax free, if you can make other types of accounts less taxable, that's going to also help your taxes, because as you spend down that money, a lot of people don't think about that, but think of a bucket draining. And when you're 73 or 75, you have to start those required minimum distributions. And as that money drains down, it's going to go into a taxable account and make your taxes even worse as you have to take more and more money out of your retirement accounts. And so it's kind of a compounding problem in the wrong way. Compound taxes is not nice.
No.
Compound interest is good. Compound tax, not so good. Right. So that's what we want to do is look at that and do that planning. So if your financial advisor isn't talking to you about taxes, it's probably time to get somebody else, because, it is a critical topic.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us some common mistakes, if you can, in the time we have left, that people are making when they're trying to manage their taxes on their own in retirement.
A lot of times just not knowing about it, not even thinking about it. They look at it year by year, but again, they don't look at, I met with somebody who their bank account interest pushed them up over to the 32% bracket. Oh. Had that money been in a tax deferred account, that would not have happened. They would have stayed in the 24, and they don't need the money in the bank. They're not using the money in the bank. So a lot of times it's just really just not knowing where their money's coming from. They can do their tax return, but doing your tax return doesn't do anything about tax planning, right? So, understanding where the money's coming from and what's causing the taxation, that's the super critical item to be looking at. So, again, that's why we've set up that digital toolbox about things like, am I paying too much money in taxes in retirement? And will my money last as long as I do? Those are some critical pieces. They're real fast reads. All you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text word toolbox 454-1184, or download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, thanks for spending part of your day with us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. Interest payments on the ballooning national debt now exceed every other individual budget item except Social Security. So given the expected continued growth of government debt, a lot of people believe it's reasonable to conclude that tax rates are going to rise in the future. What do you think about this, Eric?
There's no other way. I mean, it's just, you can't be spending more than you make. I mean, again, like you said there, it's the interest is almost the biggest thing on our balance sheet, and nobody's talking about getting lower rates, right? We can't really go refinance and lock in lower rates or something. We can't do a 6 month zero interest deal and any of those types of things. So how are we going to get out of that? There's only one way: is you have to have more income, right? If you're spending too much money, you either need to stop spending the money or have more income. And if you're spending so much more money that you can't even cut back, more income's the only thing. I mean, if as a regular person, you start doing a second job. Maybe you're doing Uber or Lyft driver or, DoorDash delivery or something, right? Yeah, you're going to have to do something for that extra money. And that's something we all know, but for some reason, the politicians pretend to like it's not happening.
Right.
If you just go to usdebtclock.org, it's a really depressing site.
Talk about stressful.
Yeah. If you just see all the numbers going up in real time, and it's just insane how much. So you can try to save some money on spending in the government, but again, it's not gonna. It's just little tiny drops in the bucket. The number is so huge and so out of control that. The only way is to raise taxes at some point. And some of it's also demographics. I mean, we've known I'm pretty sure since I started in the 90s, I don't think the numbers changed much, that Social Security is not going to be able to pay its bills, in around 2034, 2035. And this has been a super predictable thing because of by 2030, 1 in 5 Americans, 20% of everybody is going to be over 65. And they're all, guess what? On Social Security.
Yes.
Right? They're all withdrawing. And you know how few people there are under that age that are still going to be working? It's getting smaller and smaller. So, as people have less kids, there's less people to pay into Social Security to pay for the people who are, taking money out.
Exactly. The math doesn't work.
It's just demographics. It's something that we've known. It's the most predictable cliff that we're heading towards. And we've got, full speed on the gas still. And so that's one of the other issues that, people don't seem to be talking about either. And same with Medicare. Both are heading to being insolvent.
So there you go. I mean, there's some compelling things right there where we should expect tax rates to increase in our future. Eric, how might these tax increases impact individuals, the retirees who have stopped working?
Well, I'd say definitely under 50, but really it should be nowadays probably almost anybody under 60 or even 65. If you're funding anything to a tax-deferred account, meaning like 401ks, IRAs, the traditional, ones where you get the tax write-off today, quote write-off and, in air quotes, right? Because you're not really writing off the money. You still pay Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah.
Well, you pay Social Security and Medicare tax on it today, actually. And then you're just postponing the tax till later. Well,
yes.
you think you might be in a lower bracket, but most likely that's not going to happen for most people. And then if you figure out how many years, especially if you're younger, like for my sons in their 20s, it's crazy how much tax-free money that they could have, by just putting that money into Roth. So yeah, Roth 401ks, almost every company has one now. Most people can, either do a Roth IRA or maybe convert into one. So there's a lot of options out there, but yeah, the more money you have tax-free for the rest of your life, the way more protected you're going to be. And, then again, that's where you also want to look at where's your tax expense on the regular money. Are you paying too much money in taxes on the regular dollars? And, how can we move that to something more tax efficient, like maybe life insurance or maybe, tax-free things. So, there's a lot of options out there, but people just don't even think about them.
Yeah. Okay. So you just kind of touched on a couple of things there, and we've been talking about the importance of integrating tax planning in someone's overall retirement plan. This is what you and your team do, Eric. So discuss more specific tax management strategies that could be incorporated into a retiree's plan.
Yeah. There's so many different things that depending on someone's situation, right? So things ebb and flow, maybe you have 1 year where you've got more stuff going on. There's some stuff like tax loss harvesting has gotten to be a big area.
Mm-hmm.
So this is basically really talking about if you're, have a lot of money invested in normal dollars, not retirement dollars, but ones that, you have to pay tax on.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain little things that you can do where you buy and sell some stuff and trade some stocks to get some tax efficiency. And there's been a lot of studies that show roughly over time you can get maybe an extra 1% to 2% of performance by just doing these tax strategies. Okay. There's other things like using different charitable trusts and using different charitable ways to donate money, donor advised funds, lots of different things, especially you have like RSUs or employee stock purchase. I love to use these types of tools when we have some of those because you might need some taxes if you're trying to diversify out of your company stock.
Mm-hmm.
And then things like Roth conversions, those allow you to move that money to being tax-free for the rest of your life. So there's a lot of options, but it all comes down to having a plan. And I know that's boring, right?
But necessary.
It's like dentistry and exercise, right? Things we know we should do, but we don't like to do. And so, yeah, that's what you got to do is set up that plan. And, the first step would be just getting some knowledge, really. And so we have this digital toolbox that you can get some great information on. All you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, to get all these great downloads and get access to my book and a link to set a time with me, all you got to do is text the word toolbox 800-454-1184 or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Yeah, take advantage of this. Tap into, Eric and his team at Heckman Financial and, their knowledge and wisdom because they work with retirees. They've helped them retire over and over again. And you're going to retire one time. We want to make sure you do it the right way. And so Eric's system is working very well. And that's why people are calling them and going in and seeing them. And we want you to do that as well. Thank you for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. So sounds like there are lots of strategies for managing our taxes in retirement. And let's talk about how, when you meet with someone, how you help them figure out which strategy is going to work best for them, Eric.
Yeah, well, again, it's always about, two things, like lowering your lifetime taxes and then maybe this year. So they can be very different pieces of advice, but overall, when we're meeting with people, the main thing is looking at that income plan. So we have a written income plan that shows them between now and age 100, if they spend so much money and which buckets to take things from, this is what their taxes will be. And then we can easily, objectively just make some changes and say, okay, what does this do? Does this lower the lifetime tax? Does it, make things better? Does the money last longer? And if it does, then we know it's a right solution, right? So there could be lots of different things. Now, again, if you're selling your house and downsizing or selling a bunch of stock or other things, yeah, there might be some special tax planning you want to do that year. But, in general, a lot of the stuff is pretty systematic and it's pretty easy to look at once you have that plan. But the problem is so many people don't do the plan, right?
Yeah.
So once you have that written income plan where you can analyze the tax effect year by year by year, look at all that. It's very simple and easy for us to do. might be a little tougher to do on your own. So again, that's why, you might want to set up a time and talk with us. And you can get to that link and also get to a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, get to the reports like, am I paying too much taxes in retirement? All that is located in our digital toolbox. And to get access to that, pretty simple. Just text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, that text toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will the roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a great run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather the financial storm? Now may be a great time to have your retirement plan inspected. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial at 800-454-1184 now. Eric will examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial today at 800-454-1184. That's 800-454-1184. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
Hi, we're so glad to have you with us today. Thank you so much. I'm Luann Fulmer, and Eric, I know you get questions all the time about retirement or specific questions regarding issues in retirement. So we're going to take this time now and dig into our Wealth Creator mailbag, and I'm going to ask you some common retirement questions. I'm sure you get these all the time, but we're going to do it on the air right now, okay?
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, first question is from Lily. Aw. Okay. She says, we're getting a divorce after almost 30 years of marriage. I've been working outside the home for the last 5 years, so I'm happy to have work friends and some income of my own. But I really feel like I'm starting all over, and I don't even know what questions to ask first. What are some things I should be considering when planning for my future, Eric?
Yep, no, it's always a tough one. You have that gray divorce, as they like to call it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, one thing that you do get, no matter what, is when you've been married more than 10 years, you still get spousal support from Social Security, meaning you get half of your ex's Social Security benefit, even regardless of when they turn it on. So that's a little bit nicer there.
Yeah.
But really, it's just having an income plan, seeing how you're going to do these assets. Typically in divorce, you get some of the retirement accounts, or maybe get the house or whatever, depending on how things were divided up. Yeah, you're going to have to kind of reset everything, right? And figure out, what's my income plan going to be? Am I going to stay around here? Am I going to move? Because lots of times if you end up getting the house, is it a big old house that you don't need anymore, right? So you might need to downsize. So, but really just kind of going through the whole process, right? Getting that income plan, figuring out, will that money last for the rest of your life? Look at the investments. Are they geared towards that income? And then what's the tax ramifications along the way? So, definitely time to get some planning going.
Okay, very good. And of course, Eric, I know you deal with this a lot. You deal with single women and you deal with couples. So you can always put this number in your phone, 800-454-1184. Eric and his team would love to guide you personally. Another question. This one's from Jake, and he's asking or saying, my wife and I are having some serious discussions about what we want to do in retirement. I've traveled with my work for years, so I just want some peace and quiet and time to go fishing. My wife stayed at home to raise our 2 sons. She's been telling all our friends about all the places we'll go once I retire. I'm done traveling for good, but I don't know how to tell her. Any tips?
Yeah, well, you definitely do want to sit down and figure out what you guys want to be doing in retirement. And, maybe she goes on she gets a friend who she likes to travel with. My aunt's done that for years with just a friend of hers that they like to go places, and, they'll get the group tours and stuff to make it easy. And that's one thing. If you want to have quiet time and go fishing, well, she could travel to Alaska and do fishing up there. Right?
Ooh, look at that. Yeah.
So maybe you have to just tie the two together. But no, it is something that I think not enough people actually talk about all that stuff about what you want to do and how do you picture your ideal weekend, what's your ideal week, and kind of then translate that to retirement and make sure you guys are somewhat on the same page, or you at least figure out a way to both get what you want, right?
Yeah, compromise, you know?
Yep.
I mean, that's what marriage is all about anyway. So, yeah, you both have your own interests, but try to figure that out.
Yeah, and so I mean, one of the things that we do have is we do have a lot of tools in our digital toolbox that people can go get. And with the digital toolbox, we've got things like, will my money last as long as I do in retirement? Am I paying too much in taxes? When should I turn on Social Security? Even a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and even a link to set a time to talk with me, and we'll talk one-on-one, no cost, no obligation for 15, 30 minutes, find out what you're worried about, what concerns you have, and go over all these things. Now, I might not be able to tell you how to talk better to your spouse, but at least we can talk about the money stuff and at least open up those discussion lines. But if you want to get any of that information, all you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Yeah, Eric is a well-known speaker and author. He wrote that book, Worry Less Wealth. He's been president of Heckman Financial for the past 30 years now. And man, I bet you, Eric, you could kind of give them some advice, right? Bring up some ideas that other couples have done in retirement.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah. So,
all right. So again, this is Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric. All right, digging into our mailbag. Here's a question from Sid. And he asked, what's the best kind of annuity to buy? I don't want a bunch of stuff, just one simple place to keep my money.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the annuities, it's kind of like two types of annuities. Do you want income? Do you want money coming out of it? Or do you just want to, like sounds like he almost says, is just keeping the money there? And then, of course, what type of money, right? So is it regular money or is it retirement money? The first part would be is if you're just having it store there just to keep the money growing. Typically nowadays, you really want the indexed kind of annuities. I mean, the rates have gotten so great, but with the indexed kind, you get a rate based on the stock market growth. So they'll look at the S&P from today from a year ago and pay you whatever the percentage increase up to a maximum. And lots of times those could be sometimes double the earnings rate of a fixed rate annuity. So it can be a great way to build money and have that grow. If you're talking about regular dollars, meaning non-IRA money, then that money even grows tax deferred. So you won't get that 1099 at the end of the year that you have to pay taxes on. When you have that money in the bank, I mean, I've run into some people. Actually, I had one couple in particular. They had sold a piece of property, they had thrown it in the bank. And when we ran the numbers out over 20 years, they would pay $200,000 in taxes on the interest from that money, and they were probably never going to touch it. I was like,
oh no,
well, we could just move this to annuity, have it be tax deferred.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when they take the money out, they'll have to pay some tax on it, but more than likely that'll be their kids. So, hey, they're going to still get more than they have to pay tax on, right? So just deal with it. But the other kind, are ones where they have income for life. So that's ones where they have some provision, just like Social Security or pension, where it says we'll pay you for as long as you live. The neat thing about this is even if it's an individual retirement account, it can be paid on a joint life basis. And so that money will keep going. And we even have a company right now that'll double that income if you need long-term care. And for both spouses up to 5 years each. And so, so there's some great options out there. It's just, you have to have somebody who's reputable, who knows from a fiduciary standpoint, what's in your best interest, what makes sense. And, that's why a lot of people call us and get together with us to go over that. But definitely can be a great source for money today and something people should really be looking at.
Yeah, definitely look into that. And if you have your own questions about annuities, 800-454-1184, because like Eric said, they're different now. And it might be a good time to look into that. So here is another question from our mailbag from Diana. And she says, my mother just died, and now I feel like all our family does is argue over what to do with her house and who will take care of what. My siblings and I are all in our 60s now, but it feels like we're children again. I don't know if you can help us with our arguments, but could you just tell people why it's so important to take care of these decisions ahead of time?
Yep, exactly. So it's amazing how well people get together when somebody's alive and then somebody passes away and dynamics shift and change and often for people having inheriting stuff, sometimes it's not even the siblings, sometimes it's the sibling spouses that kind of wreak havoc or something. And yeah, you should really look at that. I mean, one of the things that California got rid of was they used to have that great thing where you could keep your parents' property tax basis. Now you can keep part of it, but lots of times it gets reassessed and you have to be your primary residence and all this stuff. So I find most people will just sell the house now, just because property tax wise doesn't make sense. It's income tax wise, it's tax free to sell it because you inherit it. You get a step up in basis, meaning if your parents paid $100,000 for it, you sell it for $1 million. There's no taxes to you.
Wow.
All magically disappears when somebody dies. So, yeah, lots of times it makes more sense just to sell it. But if somebody really wanted to live there, how do they buy the other people out? What's the timeline? I had one case where years ago where it was a house that was valued back then at $800,000. 4 siblings inherited it. Well, one was living there with the parents. She wanted to stay. The other one was getting divorced, so he moved in. But then he couldn't refinance because he was getting a divorce. So it took 2 years for him to buy out his other 2 siblings, which were very upset about the whole issue, right? So yeah, it's good to have a process to talk about it ahead of time. But, again, you want to have a plan for all this stuff. And so you need to have that plan for that income, investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. That's the 5 areas of the blueprint to worry less wealth. And, we've got that and a lot more in our digital toolbox that you can download. So definitely get a link for that. You got a lot of great information there and even a way to set up a time with me, Eric Heckman. So all you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Thinking about healthcare costs, long-term care expenses, and income needs in retirement? How will you afford it all? And what can you do now to help ensure your loved ones will be okay when you're gone? Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has access to tools and strategies that can help you pursue your retirement dreams without taking on too much risk with your money. Interest rates are the highest they've been in decades, so take advantage of this seemingly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to help protect your retirement before it's gone. Learn about the tools and features available today that could provide bonuses, potentially adding up to tens of thousands of dollars in additional income when medical needs arise. Schedule your visit with Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial today by calling 800-454-1184. That's 800-454-1184. These opportunities won't last forever, so call now to help protect your future. 800-454-1184.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial. And we've come to the time in our show when Eric tells us a story. It's story time. Today, he's going to do a wealth success story. It's always a really good lesson or example to see how things can work out for the best with retirees. So, gosh, Eric, can't wait to hear what you have for us today.
Yeah, well, this story about, we'll just call her Liz, but, she worked in high tech and, did what you're supposed to do, right? Funding the 401ks and all that stuff. And, she'd built up a pretty good amount of assets. But she was looking at her house and looking at how much, houses are worth. They just, San Jose has, I think now, 70, there was some stat of 70% of the homes are over $1 million. So this was a couple of years ago, those even before then. But, she realized she could cash out and live someplace else. And she really wanted to move up to the mountains. So she moved up to Reno. And, up there, she, had the 4 seasons, right? Had, close enough to be able to get back to the Bay Area to see friends and still be able to travel and have fun. And so she's doing tons of fun, cool trips every single year. And so she's kind of divided the money up a couple ways with my help. We've got some foundational money, some money that can't go away, some stuff that's guaranteed for life, some stuff that's just got guaranteed principal but earns great interest rates. So we take that money out in those bad years, you're like 2022 when the market's down. Well, let's take the money from there that year for spending. And then she also has some steady income. We've got a lot of stuff that just says, low volatility, high dividends. And she's really trying to mostly live off those dividends. And that's what we've been, for the most part doing, is just, using those dividends to pay for those trips, to have that fun. And then that allows the market money just to kind of keep growing and doing what it's supposed to do, right? Is bounce around with the markets, but over time get higher. And, by just kind of watching that and paying attention, she just look at her bills. She looks at her, spending level, and we recheck in with, with the income planning software that we use and make sure everything's on track year by year. And it's been going great. She's done Antarctica. She's done lots of crazy fun trips. She's about to go off to New Zealand and Australia.
Oh, right.
And, doing all the fun stuff that you're supposed to do, right? They try to take 2 big trips a year, and, really been getting out there and having fun. And, the other things, she keeps going to concerts, doing all the other fun stuff. So, she's not just sitting at home, right? Because,
good.
I think that's one of the big problems too, is people don't, especially when they move, they have to get kind of reconnected. So you have to find some charities to, or, places to volunteer, or, at least groups to join and, make new friends and such. So that's, travel's nice because you get to see different things, get to do different things, but you also want to have some, human connections that we all learned after 2020, right?
Yes.
And so, so she's been doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. So that's one of the fun parts of my job, is sitting there and watching people go from, that working life into that enjoying life. Thank you for tuning in to Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Eric Heckman, and it's been a pleasure guiding you towards a more confident and secure retirement. Remember, my responsibility is to always do what's right for you, our client. Together, we can cut out that fancy-sounding financial jargon that doesn't help and focus on what truly matters for your financial future. If you're ready to take control of your retirement planning and build a personalized income plan, contact us at 800-454-1184 and text the word Toolbox to schedule a complimentary consultation. If you're looking for more resources and tools to build your retirement future, don't forget to check out that Wealth Creator Toolbox, your toolkit for a secure and confident retirement journey. Until next time, retire more and worry less with Wealth Creator Radio.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.